New this morning, President Trump is taking his global trade war to the Supreme Court now, urging the justices to overturn a lower court ruling that found that his administration acted unlawfully in imposing many of his tariffs. The ones we're talking about here at issue are those Liberation Day tariffs that Trump announced in April and the tariffs imposed this year against China, Mexico, and Canada that the president had claimed at turns were imposed to combat the flow of fentanyl to the United States. The court found that the president overstepped in leaning on a 1970s era emergency powers law to pull this off. So what now? CNN's Caitlin Polantz is here to explain it all. What is this lower court saying and what's about to happen?
Well, Kate, the lower court just ruled on Friday about this, and the case is moving fast because this is quite important to the Trump administration. They want the Supreme Court to look at Donald Trump's power to put taxes on imports by the fall, early fall. They want an answer from the Supreme Court in just a couple days, and they potentially want this to be argued in November. This case, it's about the tariffs that Donald Trump put broadly on that big Liberation Day announcement against China, Mexico, and Canada. It was what he said, his initiative to combat drug trafficking coming into the country from illegal cartels. And the way that Trump did these is different than other tariffs he levied. He is saying that these tariffs should be something that Donald Trump should do as president under his emergency powers. That's going to be a question that the Supreme Court looks at. Can the president use these emergency powers to put tariffs in place against other countries? The lower court, the Federal Circuit Court of Appeals, they said, no, he cannot. And so this question is going to be a very important one now at the Supreme Court because the emergency powers have now been something that the president has tested over and over again in a lot of cases. And what the lower court found here was that Congress alone has this power to put tariffs on other countries. There is a lot of impact in this case potentially as well, Kate. What the lawyer, the primary lawyer for the plaintiffs here says, his name is Jeffrey Schwab, he says these unlawful tariffs are inflicting serious harm on small businesses and jeopardizing their survival. Indeed, it is small businesses, among others, who are suing here. Donald Trump, though, in the Oval Office just yesterday, he said that if these tariffs are wiped away by the Supreme Court, and in line with what the lower courts have done here, it would be devastation for the country. And we do have facts from the U.S. Customs and Border Protection saying that in the 2025 fiscal year, these tariffs alone brought in more than $200 billion, and that potentially could have to be paid back to companies that paid them if the tariffs are struck down. Kate?
Fascinating to see how this unwinds, if it needs to be, and what happens now. Caitlin, as always, thank you so much for your reporting.